Hey guys, MasterFiggy here, bringing you another video. This time I am bringing you Red-Green Straw Hat Supernovas with our leader, Luffy. This is the Luffy some of you may recognize from the demo deck that was released for promoting the game. So it came with 30 cards including the leader, so you had the leader and then 29 cards as your deck. This leader has the ability that you can rest for Dawn, and you can set one of your cost 5 or lower Supernovas or Straw Hat crew characters to active and give that character plus 1000 power. That is really awesome. I'm building a red-green deck with Luffy here because I wanted to just see how well this deck can do. I was watching a video by Wazzy Plays. He's a really cool guy. I haven't met him or anything, but just from his videos, really interesting. And he was just going through the leader cards for One Piece, and I think this one was like in the bottom 3 or in the bottom 4. And it's like the mid or lower part of the how good the leaders are, and it just inspired me to build a deck for this particular leader. And I know Law is the one that people mainly go to when it comes to red-green decks. I mean, like there's only two leaders so far for red and green, but you know, I just thought let's give Luffy a shot. I actually have 2 different decks for this leader, so I'm actually going to be releasing the alternative deck list sometime after this one. It's not hugely different, but it is a little bit in terms of its style of play. So first off with this one, let's start off with Otama. So we play 4 of her, and she's a 2k counter, and on play give one of your opponent's characters minus 2k power during this turn. Very useful when used with Robin. We also play 2 of the Chopper and 2 of the Capone. So these 2 cards, I have a split between them of 2 each, because I have 2 searchers for the deck. One can search out Capone and the other one can search out Chopper, just in case if I need a blocker in any particular situation. But I think having a split is very good and very useful. Next up, talking about the searchers, we have Jewelry Bonnie. Jewelry Bonnie searches out my Supernovas of the deck, which is very nice, and she's technically a continuous searcher. If my opponent doesn't get rid of this card, I can keep using her effect as long as I rest a Dawn, which is very nice. And for the other searcher, we have Nami. Now, her effect is a little bit different. Hers is an on-play effect, where we look at the top 5 cards, and we reveal one Straw Hat type card, other than Nami, and add it to our hand. So Bonnie lets you look at the top 5 and add a Supernova, and Nami, allows you to add a Straw Hat. So very similar effects, just slightly different ways of dealing with them, or using them, apologies. And next up we are on to another Supernova. This is Killer, and he's a blocker, and we play 4 of him. And what's nice about him is on block, if we have 3 or more characters, and he has a Dawn attached, we get to draw a card. So this is very useful for just gaining resources. We also play 2 Usopp and 2 Sanji. Now these both are 2k counters mainly, but Sanji can be useful for swinging into our opponent, essentially swinging in with a 7k character. And if we use the Luffy effect, he can actually be put up to 8k, and that's not even including Dawn that are active that we can put under him, which is very nice. And Usopp I am playing because if we're in a situation where our opponent is using a lot of vent cards, especially against blue decks, you know, Usopp will be useful for gaining resources, similar to Killer, except instead of blocking, the effect activates when our opponent activates an event during our turn. But like I said, it doesn't come up too often, but it is good as a 2k counter. Next up we have Scratchman Apu, and he is just a 2k counter, guys. There's no other reason to play him. Like, you could consider playing more of the Usopp or Sanji's, or even consider Brook or Gordon. It's just that we want to have a 2k counter that we can search for off of the Bonnie if we ever need it. And I think that's the important part, really, of Scratchman Apu. If there was like a Luffy or a Zoro that was a 2k counter, that would definitely be taking the slot here, because that would be searched for off of Nami and Bonnie, which would be amazing. Next up, onto the 3 cost, we have 4 of the Nico Robin, very good with Otama. So she has the ability that when she has a Dawn on her, when attacking, we get to KO one of our opponent's characters with 3000 power or less. If you use Otama, you can actually get rid of the Rush Zoro if your opponent's using that, if you're going against red. And speaking of the Rush Zoro, we play 4 of that in this deck. Rush Zoro is pretty much like your secondary boss of the deck. He's a very cheap cost. Well, in terms of like 5k and having Rush, I think that's really good to have that combo. Like you can bring this out on your second turn and you just swing into your opponent, which is great. The only issue with Zoro is he doesn't have a counter, but it doesn't matter too much because you're just using him to swing into your opponent, which is fantastic. We also have 2 of this Trafalgar Law. Now, I know a lot of people actually play 4 of this deck a lot in decks. Sometimes, they'll say minimum 3, but I think I want to test this out with just 2 for now. So it is a blocker, and then also has on play, you may return one of your characters to your hand, and then play 1 cost 3 or lower character from your hand. Now the play cost 3 does influence me in putting this down to 2 rather than 4, and I will get into that right now when I show you the main attacker of this deck, which is the Monkey D. Luffy from the starter deck. And this is a 5 cost and 6k, but it has Rush just like the Zoro, and it also has, when attacking, when he has 2 Dawn attached, your opponent cannot activate blocker abilities. So this is really nice. So essentially you have an 8k attacker swinging into your opponent. If you use your Luffy leader ability, you can suspend 4 Dawn, and then he becomes a 9k attacker. Becomes a little bit more difficult for your opponent to sort of counter that. If they counter one of the first attack, you have a second chance because of the leader, which is very nice. And if they can't block the first attack, then it's very unlikely that they can counter the second, so it's very nice. Now we play 2 of the Trafalgar Law from the green starter deck. The main reason is because he can actually set one of our rested characters with Supernovas or Heart Pirates trait with a cost 5 or less to active. Now this is actually very good because he actually does have a few targets, and those targets are the Zoro, the Trafalgar Law, and the Luffy, and of course himself. You can also count the Apu, the Killer, the Bonnie, the Capone, but they won't be attacking. The Capones and the Killers are just blockers. Bonnie's a searcher, Apu is a counter, and the Trafalgar Laws are really just there to help bring out other cards that we have on the field. Or well, sorry, this one is to help bring out other cards and be a blocker, and this one is to help to stand those characters. So this, I know some people might find this card redundant because you have the Luffy leader who pretty much does the same thing and technically 1 Dawn less. But what I like about this card is, yes, you're paying an extra Dawn to use that ability, but what you're also doing is you're getting another body on the board with 6k, and that extra Dawn can apply, by using that extra Dawn to bring out that extra body, you're applying a little bit of pressure onto your opponent because you're letting them know that, yes, you can block this next attack, but next turn I'm making sure that I can hit into you. And so this is a little bit more of a late to mid-game kind of situation, I feel. Slap down this law, you bring this Luffy back up standing, and maybe, actually I don't think you can. I was about to say you could probably even use the Luffy and the Law's abilities in the same turn. I don't think you can. Well, you could if you didn't have any Dawn attached to this Luffy, or maybe you just had 1 Dawn attached and then you slap down the Law and then the Luffy, so he can attack 3 times. But it's unlikely to happen, but it could happen. You could potentially have 3 attacks with that Luffy. We also play 4 Radical Beam because we only start out with 4 life because of our leader is dual colored, but that is still good to have. Radical Beam, it's a 1 cost. And then for the last 2 cards, we play 2 Jet Pistol. I mean, just removing your opponent's characters with 6k or less. you know, it's very useful to have. And that's pretty much it for the deck, guys. I don't think it's too different from what people have seen, possibly from the Trafalgar Law and being reduced down to 2 rather than 4. I've seen people use the Eustace Kid with the 8 cost and even the blocker one. I was considering playing those, but the idea of the deck is that you're trying to be as quick swinging into your opponent as possible. I think 5 costs are enough really to apply that little bit of pressure. I've even seen some decks that didn't play the Zoro, and I feel like you need the Zoro to apply that little bit of pressure as well. The rush really helps you know, swing into your opponent a lot more. But I want to thank you guys for watching this video. If you did enjoy, hit the like button, comment down below telling what you guys think. You know, subscribe to the channel, because I will be putting up a different red-green Luffy deck up in a bit. I'm not sure when, possibly a week from now. But yeah, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye and thank you.